All right, everybody. Welcome to our Impactful Projects and Planning series. I'm Jamie Yazdani. In today's session, we're talking with Seth Giamanco about productivity. And so Seth is a principal at Minds on Design Lab, a strategic design studio with digital expertise. And so Seth has led the creation of websites that are beautiful in their brand expression, easy to use, and focused on conversion. So welcome, Seth. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. Good to be here.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about your work and your business. So what impact are you hoping to create for your clients?
Right on. So we're a design studio that does a whole breadth of different types of design work, from visual branding to organizational, event, campaign collateral, both print and digital, to content managed websites. And I most of our clients are, again, small and mighty. Often that means small and mighty organization, sometimes medium or larger and a small team within it. But we find they're growing, and we want them to have a visual design that reflects the quality of the good work that they're doing. They want that too. So it's a level up to how they're presenting themselves. And the idea is we're looking to boost their confidence and to create a situation where, when they're having a conversation with a potential funder or community members, and those people go and visit their website or look at their annual report or get an invite from them, that those materials are reflecting the level of quality of the experience they were having and the conversations that they were having. So they're backing up those teams, and that's that confidence boost part. And reinforcing the quality of that organization, and as a result, building trust overall.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love that focus on trust. And I think we've all been to organization websites where you're not sure. You imagine that they're
Mm-hmm.
doing good work, but you're not sure. And I think in a world where there's a lot of scams and people who maybe aren't doing good work, it's we want people to trust us. So what would you say makes website and design projects unique or challenging?
I think a big part of it for all design projects, including the website, is you're balancing creativity and a creative exercise with a whole lot of different constraints. So for general design projects, you're thinking about anything from what are the communication goals, brand alignment to any existing brand materials, look and feel, to the classics of budget and timing. And with our working with nonprofit organizations, we're generally working with tighter budgets while the need is still great, and the desires are still great. And then on the website side of things, you're just layering on a whole lot of additional constraints. So from creating designs that work on all sorts of screen sizes and resolutions, to performance, making sure that pages load quickly and balancing that with the visual assets that you're using on a page, accessibility, making sure that you're using colors that have the right level of contrast for those that may have difficult seeing that or reading materials, and being sensitive to that, to the nature of dynamic content and content flexibility. So we're building sites on a content management system, and we want to provide flexibility to allow authors to tell their stories in ways that make sense for that particular page or blog entry or event that they're publishing. So when they're creating that, we want to make sure that our clients don't have to do any technical wrangling, and get a great design. So making sure our designs can be flexible. So if they add an image here, looks good. If they add a metric block that showcases a number and a impact stat, alongside that image, it looks great then, in whatever combination that these things work. So it makes it that much harder to, again, all with budget and timing and wanting to have a nice, unique look, We find that we often have to work to kind of find those small creative details within a piece of work that gives it something that a little bit of a unique flair that plays with the brand a little bit, makes it shine, and that could be reused in a lot of different places to kind of balance that out. Whereas not every page on a website could be designed completely uniquely
Right.
and be in a tight budget or on a tight deadline. A larger budget, yes, could have lots of unique layouts and pages, but working within those constraints is always the challenge.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Actually, my first project I ever managed was a large website redesign project. I'm not a web designer at all, but we were transitioning from sort of one content management system to another, and we're using it as an opportunity to really scale down. And this was a library website, so lots of, like you said, constraints, lots of interrelated pieces, lots of folks who were going to need to make updates. And so, yeah, it was a it was a large project, and I maybe still have PTSD from it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We find that that's pretty common where whether large site to to even smaller sites, sometimes there is a tendency to make things more complex than they need to be. And those sites become really hard to manage, really hard to use. They generally don't serve the need over time. They might have at the time of launch, but over time they become more cumbersome to evolve and manage. And so the process of doing a little bit of streamlining as part of it. And again, that's a different type of website challenge. Is how do you give flexibility? How do we address a lot of unique needs, yet still try to keep the back end and how a site is architected, simple and streamlined as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think we had something like 700 individual pages that needed to be scaled down, and some of them were out of date. But anyway, so thinking about all of the different stakeholders that we are often talking about, particularly in nonprofit projects, how do you facilitate collaboration in your projects?
Well, generally we're working with a core team.
Okay.
Occasionally, we're engaging some folks outside of that core team. Depends on the organization and where they are. Rarely, and sometimes we've had experience where that outside collaboration is with the board, which is always a challenge. But I think with the core team, I think the key part is establishing a culture of respect and trust where we can equally share expertise, ask questions, challenge, and have good dialogue, and learn from each other as we're going. So during the discovery process, for example, we want to learn from our client partners. We want to learn about the audiences they're trying to engage. We want to learn what their pain points are, what their goals are. We want to learn from their content, their programs. What is it they're offering? What are the key and desirable engagements? While we're learning about that, of course, we're injecting some of our own expertise and understanding. So multiple touch points during that process to have those types of conversations. And then as we move through the process, providing feedback on designs, providing feedback on wireframes, and just having those open conversations during the course of the process, and being very transparent about what type of feedback is helpful, how to guide that, how to move forward, how to be strategic in our thinking, how to keep our audience members and personas in mind every step of the way, as well as being transparent and real about, change requests and alterations and impact on budget and timing. So, we see it as a true partnership where sometimes a partner needs to say yes and, or maybe even no but, you know, and try to explore alternative approaches. If you simply just say yes to everything, there's a tendency to lead to those over-engineered solutions that are
Mm.
hard to use and hard to maintain over time. So, you know, trying to, you know, to keep that streamlined and keep that conversation that we share that goal of creating a simple
Mhm.
site together. Um, Outside, you know, lots of different opportunities. It really just depends
Mm.
on the organization. But you know, we'll do things from surveys to sometimes doing presentations, sometimes recording video walkthroughs to share with
Mhm.
other folks to get feedback. If there's something unique to a website that we might want to get some user experience feedback and like a little mini usability study, you know, we might create some prototypes and get some feedback that way from the broader community. But with most of our projects being pretty lean, we're very reliant on working with, you know, the knowledge of the people that we're working with and really leveraging that to get a good outcome.
Wonderful. Yeah, it sounds like a very sort of, I'm imagining a very iterative process, you know, that there's kind of, it's not like, oh, we get some feedback at the beginning and then you get a website at the end and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you're, you know, saying kind of what you like and don't like. And
yeah,
so yeah, a lot of
yeah,
collaboration along the way.
yeah. And it's you know, in terms of, you know, project management approaches, we tend to, as these are mostly project-based
Mhm.
efforts in terms in the website, at least the first build of a website,
Mhm.
and you know, maintaining it or evolving it over time is a little bit different. But we balance a bit of a waterfall approach where
Mhm.
we are doing a lot of thinking and a lot of planning at the outset with an understanding that we need some agility through the way.
Right.
So you know, we are going to do wireframing, we are going to write up a brief, and that's important. But we also have to leave room during the process for change,
Right.
because as you know, move from a wireframe, which is a like, you know, non-polished outline or
Mhm.
blueprint for what the site might be, every time we show a full fidelity design, we get feedback that could have been given at the wireframe phase, but it just doesn't hit you until you
Right.
see, you know, everything really come together. So, you know, that's natural, and we need to allow for that to happen as we go.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I know PMI is saying that increasingly people are using hybrid approaches. So there
Mhm.
are definitely people using waterfall, you know, and you absolutely have to do it in certain things like construction or whatever. But
Mhm.
and there are some people probably in tech that are absolutely using agile or iterative, but most people are doing some blend, right? Because
Yeah.
our projects increasingly need some of that feedback and flexibility.
Yeah.
So, how do you approach aligning your work with an organization's overall strategy?
From day one.
Okay.
So we don't, our work doesn't exist outside of their of their strategic desired outcomes. So it's unearthing those very early on, understanding them deeply, and keeping them in mind all throughout the way. I think one specific area that we try to bring the collective team around is who are the people that this asset, website, other design piece that we're doing, who is that trying to serve? What need is that addressing? What are the challenges of that particular audience that we need to keep in mind? And then again, what's the desired outcome that you're hoping this audience will take? We define that early on if that's not already previously defined for us. And that's a collaborative process. And then it's something that we refer to throughout the project. And even as we're getting design feedback, we try to ask challenging questions as we're getting that feedback around what's the strategic reaction, or how is what you're reacting to if they're giving some, you know, they don't like a color or they're not happy
Mhm.
with something being on the right versus the left. um, you know, what's the strategy behind that feedback? You know, how are you concerned that that might not address the goals that we have together? Because, you know, ultimately, yes, we want everybody to like the work that we're doing, and it's generally not an issue for us. But at the same time, it's really most important that the community that that's serving and trying to engage, their needs are served. This, you know, website's not about us. It's not really even about the client
Mhm.
directly. It's about who they're trying to serve and trying to make sure that, you know, we're being strategic about every detail, from the labels and the navigation to, you know, where there are call to actions, how those call to actions are presented, again, with those people in mind and what they're looking for in mind.
Great. So you mentioned personas. I think you said personas, or at least that's what my brain registered.
Yeah.
Do you find sometimes that people are there? Do you try to narrow down the personas? Because I can, and I think, you know, thinking back to that library, one of the challenges was that we had multiple audiences, right, that we were trying
Yeah.
to reach, and so.
Yeah. What we find is when we do our audience exercise, we'll often get details for anywhere from a half a dozen to a dozen
Mm,
unique audiences. When we do analysis of that, we find it's generally not that hard to get that down to 3 or 4.
okay.
Um, Not to say that those audiences are the same,
Mm,
but needs are similar enough and desired outcomes are similar enough
mm,
that we can consider them similarly, you know,
okay.
so it makes it a little bit easier. But that said, within the website, different areas of the website can focus on different audiences a little bit differently. You
Right.
know, the about page, for example, or an impact page, we're going to give consideration to, you know, corporate partners, major
Mm,
givers, you know, individual donors a little bit differently than we might, you know, someone who's looking at a program page and the events that those are offering, that they want to attend those events, which might be, you know, different communities. So there is some flexibility within a site to try to have focus in different areas so
mhm.
that you're not always talking to all 4 or 5 of your primary audiences at once, which is challenging.
Great, thank you. Well, how can folks get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Well, we're here on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn and love connecting and engaging there. So can look me up, Seth Giamanco, for my profile there. Certainly can check us out at mod-lab.com and our website. And if you'd like to email, you could email at hello@mod-lab.com.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Seth. This has been a great conversation. And thanks, everybody, for joining us for our Impactful Projects and Planning series. Thanks.
Thank you.